welcome back to my channel. Today I'm filming a video to tell you a little bit about some postpartum problems. If you are squeamish and you don't like TMI, then probably this is not the video for you. However, if you're an expecting mum or a mum who has just gone through labour, then it's probably a good video for you to watch, because you need to be prepared for the fact that postpartum is just not fun. It's not the most pleasant experience. Obviously, you've got your baby and the vast majority of your concentration is on your baby, but things are still happening in your body. Your body is flushing everything out that it no longer needs. So there's a lot of bleeding. There is a lot of cramping as your uterus shrinks back down, and that happens more quickly if you're breastfeeding. So I was breastfeeding this time around, kind of combination feeding, and so my uterus went back down to its normal size of about an orange quite quickly, according to the midwives. I don't really know for myself, but the midwife said that it was quite quick, so that was good. But there's a lot of bleeding, and sometimes there can be some complications as well, as there were for me, so I thought I would share them with you. The first time around, when I had my daughter Elena, who's now almost 3, I had stitches which got infected, so that was my kind of complication that time around. This time around I didn't have any stitches. The labour was so fast. If you watch my labour and delivery story, you will know that it was really quick, with just 2 pushes to get her out, so I just don't even think I had a chance to get stitches. She just flew right out. So I didn't need any stitches, which was good. I did have a very small tear, but it was one of these ones that they felt could just heal itself, so I didn't have any stitches or anything. I didn't have any infection as well, which is great. But I did have I had a kind of normal amount of bleeding for the first couple of weeks, just kind of like a really heavy period, I guess. But about 2 weeks in, it was the health visitor's first visit actually. So I think that was around about day 12. And the health visitor was in. So in the UK we have the midwife's visit up until day 10 generally, and then assuming the baby is growing well, putting on weight, they'll hand over to the health visitor, who will visit kind of once a week or less if they don't feel that you need it. So they come out, the health visitor comes out and weighs your baby and sort of checks up on you. So she was out doing her first visit on day 12, and she was weighing Alethea and talking through all the information that they need to go through, like responsive feeding and child smell, which is the sort of how to take care of your infant's teeth and gums, all of that. And at one point I got up off the sofa to give her back a form that she'd asked me to fill in, about postnatal depression, I think it was, and I got up from the sofa, and when I got up, I just kind of felt what it felt like to me, like a little bit of a gush. Sometimes if you have your period, sometimes when you stand up you feel like a little bit of gush, and so I excused myself and went to the toilet. I just thought I maybe had quite a lot of blood come out, and just wanted to check that it hadn't gone through my clothing and so on. But when I went to the toilet and I checked my pad, because obviously I was wearing maternity pads, I was bleeding at this point. When I checked my maternity pad, there was a fairly large clot sitting there. And when I say fairly large, it was about this long. It was the whole length of the pads, and it was probably about this thick in its thickest part. So I just thought, well, okay. Last time around I had a clot, but I was still in the hospital at the time, and they ask you not to flush the toilet if you pass a clot in the toilet in the hospital. Sorry, I did warn you, TMI. So they checked it at the time, it was fine, no problems. But I didn't really remember passing any other significant clots. This was definitely a lot bigger than I remembered seeing the first time round. So since the health visitor was there, I went back in. I kind of kept it. I took my pad off, put it in the sink, and put on a new one, and I went back in and I mentioned it to the health visitor since she was there, and so she said, well, I'll come and have a quick look. So she came and had a look and said, well, that's the biggest clot I've ever seen in my experience as a health visitor. I'm phoning your GP. And she works for the GP practice, the health visitor does. So she phoned her practice, the GP practice, and asked for the GP to give me a telephone consultation. So she did that while she was there, and she did say to me, you need to relax now. have you done any exercise? And I said, no, but I did go for our first sort of family walk with the pram yesterday. She said, okay, exercise can make sort of any residual tissue come out in the form of clots, so you need to relax and you need to take it easy and you need to not be doing long walks and so on. Not that it had been a long walk the day before, it had been like maybe about 40 minutes walk. That's about as much as Elena can manage, my 3-year-old. And it felt really, really good for me to get out. But yeah, she said obviously take it easy and try and sort of, keep sitting down and things like that. It's worth noting that I had breastfed my daughter just before the health visitor came, and when you're feeding, like I said, your uterus is contracting down. So if you are going to pass clots, it quite often happens after you are feeding or pumping, as I found out later that day. So about an hour after the health visitor left, my GP called. So I explained to him what had happened, and he said, okay, let me phone the midwife's unit just to see what they think. And then he phoned me back and said that they basically said that if it's just a one-off, nothing to worry about, it's probably just a little bit that was left over, keep going on with my day and see how things went. So that's what I decided to do, and I felt fine. We just had the normal bleeding again for the first couple of hours after that phone call. By this point it was probably about 2 p.m. maybe. Yeah, about 2 p.m. And then I sat down to express some milk using my breast pump. I've got a Medela Swing, so an electric breast pump, and so I sat down to do that, and at that point I was sitting down. I had been putting a towel underneath myself because I was just paranoid about getting blood on the couch anyway, so I had a towel under myself whenever I was sitting down anywhere really in the house for the first few weeks, just because I'm paranoid that way. So I did have a towel under me, and it was very, very lucky that I did, because I felt another gush, and I just said to my husband, oh, that feels like the same as the last time. But when I stood up, that's when it really, but I wasn't standing up at that point. I was sitting down when I felt the gush. So when I did stand up, I stood up and took the towel with me, and I really felt the gush happen then. I had to run to the toilet, and by the time I got there, the blood had gone through all of my clothing, my pads and the towel, and was dripping on the floor. So apologies TMI, I did warn you. Yeah, so loads and loads of blood, and when I went to the toilet, there was another big clot on my pad, although definitely not nearly as big as before, but probably about that size, something about that size. So a good size clot, probably more in line with what I'd seen the first time around with my first baby. So I phoned the GP back again, and he then said, okay, I'm going to phone the hospital, so the consultant-led unit. So previously he'd phoned the midwife-led unit where I gave birth. This time he phoned the consultant-led unit which has like, doctors on hand. The midwife-led unit is literally just the midwives. So he phoned them, and they told me that I had to go up there and see them. I should pack an overnight bag because they probably needed to scan me, and by this point it was unlikely I would get a scan that day, because obviously by the time I got up to the hospital it was sort of about 4 o'clock or something. So that was really, really frustrating because they told me to pack an overnight bag. I just had a baby, I had a toddler, I really didn't want to leave my husband with the 2 children. They did say I could bring the baby with me because I was breastfeeding, so they have to allow you to do that. But in the end we decided to leave her at home because she was starting to get into a routine, and I had expressed quite a lot of milk, so I felt like I had enough for her to take by the bottle. And I was combination feeding, so any top up with formula she needed, my husband could do that. I was worried about his sanity though, his first night alone with the baby and the toddler, but I did tell him to phone his mother, like my mother-in-law, his mum, but he was adamant he wasn't going to do that, so that was fine. So my dad took me up to the hospital. We were waiting for ages because there were emergency C-sections and things going on. Obviously I wasn't a priority. The babies are always the priority. So that was absolutely fine, but then when they did take me, they had a doctor come, They'd asked me to save the clots and bring them with me, so she did look at them and she did say that was a lot. She also did an internal exam, which I used a swab and a bit like a smear test, taking swabs so that she could check for infection, because that is the main risk, that's the main concern when you're passing clots like that, is that you could be infected in your womb, which obviously can be really, really extremely dangerous actually. But I hadn't been feeling ill at all. Apart from passing clots and bloods, I felt entirely normal, so that was a good sign. Because they were asking me, did I feel faint? Was I feeling nauseous? Was I sick? Had I collapsed? None of those things had happened, thankfully. But they did say, obviously, the risk is, with these kind of size of clots, the risk is that I could have, been holding the baby, I could have collapsed downstairs, something terrible could happen. So I was definitely glad to be in the hospital at that point. I would much rather get myself sorted and get home and be healthy for my children. So after all that, the internal exam and everything, they left me alone in the room for a while. So my mum and dad came in, because my mum had come up to the hospital by this point after her work, straight from her work. And they came in to sit with me and sort of, ask me, did I need anything? Did they need me to pop to, did I need them to pop to Asda and get some more clothes? Because again, I'd gone right through my entire outfit again with blood, so I'd already thrown out a bunch of clothes that actually fit me. Because postpartum, you're still kind of wearing maternity, basically living in leggings, and I'd already thrown out like 3 pairs of my leggings. So they were checking what I might need and so on. And then the midwife came back and told me that I would be put in a room overnight and scanned sometime in the morning. At this point, they did ask me about my baby and my breastfeeding, and I said that I was feeling quite full and I didn't have my electric breast pump with me, but obviously the hospital supplies them, so they set me up with a breast pump in my room. I was in a private room, which was lovely, and the actual the labour in the sort of postpartum unit that is in the maternity ward, so that is surrounded by mums and their babies, but there was me just with my own self in my own private room. So it was a very, very strange thing. I could hear babies crying all night long, and I kept waking up thinking my baby was crying, and obviously my baby was not there. So to say that I had a few sad sobbing moments would be an understatement. I was pretty upset to be away, but hopeful to get a good night's sleep, like that's possible in a hospital, but So yes, I spent the night just drinking as much water as I could, pumping as much breast milk as I could and putting it in their fridge. They store it for you in their fridge and then you can take it home with you, which is what I did the next day. The next morning, I was patiently waiting for someone to come and tell me what was going on, and eventually about 10 a.m. A midwife came to tell me I would get my scan at 11:30, and so I had to start drinking water from about 10:30, and I needed to make sure I drank at least a litre before the scan so that they could get a really clear picture. So you'll know when you're pregnant, obviously they encourage you to drink water so that they can see the baby better. Well, this is the same thing. They wanted to see inside of my womb, obviously baby free now, but to see what was going on in there. So I did that, took me for the scan, a doctor did the scan, and she did say that I had quite a significant amount of residual tissue. So what that tissue was, they have no way of knowing really what it was. It could have been leftover bits of placenta, although my maternity notes did not indicate that the placenta looked, like it had broken in parts, or like a part had broken off, or like it was ragged or anything. It looked full. So whether or not it's that, they'll never know. It could be something else. But there was residual tissue. It was about 2 centimetres wide, but it ran the whole length of my womb, and it was stopping my womb from closing up, which it should close after you have a baby. There was also a bit of liquid in there, but that's a lot less of a concern because that generally works its way out or is absorbed by the body. So it was the residual tissue that was the issue, and again the risk is infection. So they sent me back to my room to wait for a doctor and see what would happen. And I have a friend who's a midwife, so I sent her a message to ask her, what's likely to happen here, and she said, if it sounds like it's significant, to me it sounds like a D&C, which is basically taking you to theatre and getting everything out of there. Or if you're lucky, maybe antibiotics. I'd already started antibiotics the night before. He gave me my first antibiotic when I got to my private room and my second in the morning before the scan. So I was sitting there patiently waiting till about 1 p.m. when a doctor finally came to talk to me. Was it after that? It might have been 2 p.m. I think it was about 2 p.m. because I didn't go home until quite a bit later. So the doctor came to speak to me. He said that obviously a lot of residual tissue. He'd had to look at the scan, but he felt that taking me to theatre always has the risk of nicking your womb, because it was the whole way down my womb. Trying to get that out without causing damage could be a challenge, he thought. So what he decided was that he would send me home with a course of 5 days of antibiotics and then re-scan me 1 week later from that date to see what had happened. And if at that point they felt that there was still too much tissue in there, then they would reconsider theatre. So obviously I was over the moon. I had kind of resigned myself to the fact I was probably going to theatre and I wasn't going to see my baby girls that day, which would have been terrible actually. But you know, as a new mum, you just desperately want to get home to your kids. So I was lucky enough to get discharged that day, which was absolutely great. So my husband came and picked me up about an hour later. He left the baby with his mum, with my mother-in-law, and he brought up my toddler Elena, and she was desperate to see me, which was lovely. So we went home and I did my course of antibiotics. I did pass a couple more smaller clots over the course of those 5 days, and then I went back for my scan 1 week later. And I had a bit of a joker doctor for that scan, which was kind of good because it kept it lighthearted, because I wasn't really overly worried, but obviously I was concerned they might take me in again and I wouldn't see my kids again and all that. However, as it worked out, he said that there was practically nothing to see left in there. So the vast majority of the tissue had worked its way out, so I had passed some more clots, little small ones, little bits at a time. It had worked its way out somehow. There was still some liquid in there, but he said that would flush out or be absorbed. Nothing to worry about, so thank goodness. They told me they would just leave me be, not do anything else. So that's kind of the end of the story, to be honest. I came home much happier, knowing that things were settling down there, and I stopped bleeding about 2 weeks later. So I still bled like a normal period for another couple of weeks, about 4 weeks in total, and yeah, now I feel completely back to normal. I didn't have any, it was very strange, I didn't have any other symptoms at all. They kept feeling my belly, asking for about tenderness. Didn't have any particular tenderness, and I didn't have any illness or sickness, vomiting, dizziness, none of that. So I think I was incredibly lucky. But I guess just the moral of the story is, if you are a postpartum mum, just be really vigilant to these things and don't ignore them, because if you get to the stage where you have got an infection in there, it can be really dangerous, and you can pass out, and if you're home alone with your baby, that's really dangerous. So please, if you're a postpartum mum, watch out for blood clots, watch out for gushes of blood, and make sure you make your midwife, health visitor, GP, doctor, whoever it is, know what's going on, and act on it quickly, because yeah, you don't want to get ill when you're trying to care for your child. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you found it useful. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Apologies again for the TMI, I did warn you. One of these things, postpartum is not the most pleasant experience, but hey ho, that's the way it goes. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.